Here are the key points from the introduction. The central truth of the book is that you alone are responsible for your happiness and who you become. To embrace that truth, you must first identify and break down the lies you've believed about yourself. Those lies have power over you until you recognize them. The author created her platform and shares lifestyle content to inspire and encourage women. She aims to be authentic by sharing the highlight reel and the behind-the-scenes struggles. Even so, she regularly receives messages from readers struggling with feelings of inadequacy, shame, and pain. She wishes she could say more to encourage them beyond general platitudes. This book attempts to share more of what she would say to her friends and loved ones in that position. The lies we believe about ourselves often come from society, media, family, and even the influence of evil. Recognizing and overcoming them is critical to growth and change. Understanding the lies that hold you back and the truth that you alone control your life is empowering and life-changing. That dichotomy is what the book aims to explore. The author recently had an experience minor incontinence while jumping on a trampoline with her kids. She acknowledges that giving birth has caused some loss of bladder control. Though it was embarrassing, no one noticed. She had to keep jumping to dry her shorts. Ironically, photos of her dressed up for an event were posted on social media shortly after, leading people to comment on how glamorous her life seemed. In reality, the author says she is very unglamorous. She is not trying to seem relatable like a celebrity. She means it literally. She acknowledges she is not perfect in any area of life, as a wife, mother, friend, boss, or Christian. The only thing she excels at is making and eating cheese-based dishes. In other areas of life, she says she is struggling. The overall message is that appearances on social media can be deceiving. The author wants to set the record straight. Despite curated images, her life is imperfect and messy like anyone else's. Here is a summary of the excerpt. The author admits she is flawed and imperfect, but chooses to keep trying to become a better person each day. She worries that many women feel overwhelmed and have given up trying to improve their lives. But life is meant to be lived, not just survived. While circumstances outside our control will bring sadness if you're generally unhappy or disappointed, that is within your control to change. Happy people exist, and you can become one by enjoying life. The author did not have an easy childhood. Her brother committed suicide when she was 14, and her home life was chaotic. She knew if she wanted a better life, she had to create it herself. At 17, she moved to LA to escape her troubled home. She learned that geography doesn't determine happiness, you must choose to be happy each day, regardless of circumstances. Comparing yourself to others and who you think you should destroy joy. Surround yourself with positivity and do things that make you happy. The author has tried many diets and exercise plans but failed to follow through. She's signed up for races but has yet to run them. She's realized, "I'll start tomorrow," is a lie we tell ourselves to avoid complex changes today. You only have today, so start now. Don't put off living the life you want. Take small steps daily to build better habits and become the person you aspire to be. The key message is that happiness is a choice, and you have the power to change your life for the better starting today. Don't make excuses, take action now. Here's a summary. The author habitually declared goals and commitments but rarely followed through. She would announce plans to work out, diet, write a book, etc., for years but would give up within days or weeks. She realized this pattern was damaging because 1. Her subconscious couldn't trust her commitments since she often broke promises to herself. 2. Her friends and family had watched her quit and give up repeatedly, so they likely didn't take her goals seriously either. 3. When she faced obstacles or got tired, she reverted to her highest level of training, to make excuses and quit. Her past behavior had trained her mind and body to give up easily. She decided to change this pattern by committing to sticking to even small promises and building up her mental endurance. For example, she gave up Diet Coke for 30 days, something she never thought she could do. By following through, she proved to herself she could achieve a goal. This success helped her stick to bigger goals like running a half marathon and writing a book. She knew she could do it if she just kept showing up. She built on her past success and remembered what she had achieved before when she wanted to quit. The key was starting small but always keeping her word to herself. Over time, her highest level of training became persevering, not giving up. She trained her mind and body through repetition and practice to become someone who could be counted on even by herself. The author considers herself a recovering workaholic. She feels compelled to work excessively, often to exhaustion and illness. Part of the reason is that she loves her job and the team she has built. She is proud of the business and community she has created. However, this often comes at the cost of spending time with her family, who she struggles to give enough attention and care. The author's workaholism stems from childhood experiences where she only got praise and attention when she succeeded or achieved something. This taught her that she had to produce to feel loved. As an adult, she constantly needs to achieve more and move on to the next goal. She needs help celebrating victories or enjoying accomplishments. The author's first experience with facial paralysis, Bell's palsy, came at age 19 during a stressful relationship with her now husband. She handled the anxiety by throwing herself into her work, not allowing herself to stop and think about the problems. The facial paralysis was a physical manifestation of her immense stress and anxiety. In summary, the author's workaholism results from a deep-seated belief from childhood that she must achieve and produce to feel loved and worthy, coupled with a tendency to avoid dealing with stress and anxiety in her personal life by immersing herself in her work. Recognizing this has been part of her overcoming her unhealthy attachment to outcomes. The author suffers from recurrent attacks of Bell's palsy, a temporary paralysis of the facial nerves that causes paralysis on one side of the face. During her first attack at age 19, she experienced facial drooping, an inability to close one eye, slurred speech, and an altered sense of taste. The experience leaves her extremely self-conscious and depressed. Shortly after, her boyfriend breaks up, adding to her distress. The palsy eventually subsides after a month. A few years later, the author Bell's palsy recurs during a trip to Europe with her now husband. Although they humor the situation, she feels devastated, especially when realizing a photo of her in front of the Eiffel Tower will memorialize the experience. Upon returning home, doctors determined her palsy attacks were linked to extreme stress and insufficient rest. More recently, the author began suffering from chronic vertigo and saw multiple doctors before a homeopathic doctor determines it was also stress-related. He advises her to rest and avoid busyness to allow her body and mind to heal. The author admits she struggles with inactivity and constant productivity, recognizing she must prioritize self-care. In summary, the author's experiences with Bell's palsy and vertigo illuminate the profound effects of stress and overexertion on physical health and well-being. Although challenging, she understands the importance of rest and avoiding burnout to restore balance and health. The author recalls an incident from her teenage years when she made fun of a classmate named Tina for shaving her toes, even though the author herself also shaved her toes. She realizes now what a hypocrite she was and how damaging tearing other women down can be. The author then reflects on why women gossip about and criticize each other. She suggests it may stem from insecurity and a desire to feel better about ourselves by pointing out others' flaws. However, she notes that criticizing others does not make us feel better and perpetuates a cycle of hurt. The author shares an anecdote about witnessing an unruly child on a plane and initially judging the mother harshly. However, upon seeing how exhausted and overwhelmed the mother was, the author realized she did not know the whole story and should not judge. She notes that we should extend compassion to others rather than criticism. The key messages are: 1. Tearing other women down is damaging and stems from insecurity. It does not make us feel better about ourselves. 2. We should not judge or rebuke others since we do not know their whole story. Compassion is better than condemnation. 3. We are all flawed and hypocritical at times. Recognizing this can help us become less judgmental toward others. The anecdotes about the author's experiences illustrate these key messages and make the points more relatable. Ultimately, the theme is that we should aim to support and uplift other women rather than put them down. The author reflects on an experience of judging another woman, a tired mother struggling to control her young son on a flight. She realizes she made unfair assumptions without considering the circumstances or challenges the woman might be facing. The author argues that women frequently judge each other in hurtful ways, creating divisions instead of community. She says judging others keeps us from forming meaningful friendships and connecting deeply with each other. The author shares an experience of cheering on her friends in a half marathon instead of competing herself. Although challenging, she learned that stepping back from competition and judgment allowed her to share their joy and accomplishments. She says putting service above competition leads to richer experiences. The author says the first step to overcoming judgment is admitting we are all prone to it, whether in small or large ways. The second step is recognizing that our beliefs and choices may not be right for everyone. Judging others often comes from insecurity, a need to feel we have everything figured out. Real accountability comes from a place of love within the community. The author says women deeply crave meaningful friendships with each other. We must start by keeping an open mind, looking for common ground instead of differences. We should focus on character over surface attributes. Finding your tribe may require moving past preconceptions about who they might be. Surrounding yourself with non-judgmental friends can help overcome judgmental tendencies. Their example shows a better way. Focusing on listening instead of talking helps build understanding. Extending grace and assuming good intent leads to healthier relationships. Recognizing we all have moments of weakness fosters compassion. Overall, the key messages are: judgment divides while understanding unites, put service over the competition, seek to understand others instead of prove yourself right, surround yourself with open-minded friends, and extend grace as you hope to receive it. A non-judgmental approach builds community and meaningful connections between women. The author fell in love at first sight with an older man she met at her internship when she was 19. Even though he expressed concerns about their age difference and experience levels, she pursued a relationship with him. She quickly began spending every night at his apartment, believing they were in a serious relationship and would get married, even though they were not officially dating or having sex. At a party, she enthusiastically introduced him as her boyfriend to her friends. He got upset with her afterward, saying she was acting immature. The author now realizes he was mistreating her, and she was justifying his hurtful behavior because she was in love and insecure. She sees now that she was just his booty call. The author shares this story to help other women in similar situations recognize unhealthy relationships and make better choices. The key messages are: 1. Loving someone is not enough reason to stay in a relationship where you are not treated well. 2. Insecurity and naivety can lead to justifying hurtful behavior from a romantic partner. 3. Recognizing the signs of an unhealthy relationship and establishing your worth can help you make better dating choices. 4. Sharing stories of past mistakes and life lessons can help others learn from your experiences. The author describes a dysfunctional relationship in her late teens with a man who mistreated her. She made excuses for his behavior and blamed herself for getting whatever scraps of affection he would offer her. She gave her virginity to him in a desperate attempt to hold on to the relationship as he moved away. He broke up with her over the phone 2 months later on Thanksgiving. That night, she had a moment of clarity and saw the relationship for what it was: unhealthy and damaging. She called him back and calmly told him she was done and didn't want to be friends anymore because of how he treated her. She went to sleep feeling empowered. The next morning, he was at her door begging for another chance. She says this feels like something out of a movie. While she and her husband now have a loving relationship, she knows that continuing to accept poor treatment usually leads to more of the same. She says walking away, even if it's hard, is sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself. She hopes her story helps others in similar situations see the truth of what's happening, finds compassion for themselves, and realize they have the power to start over and do better. She says having close confidants and parental guidance could have helped her avoid or escape the situation sooner. The key takeaways are: 1. Don't make excuses for or blame yourself for someone else's poor treatment of you. 2. Be very careful if you don't have outside voices advising you in a relationship. Your judgment can be clouded. 3. Every day is an opportunity to choose self-respect and set healthy standards for your relationships. 4. Though painful, walking away from unhealthy relationships is often the most loving thing you can do and the only way things will change. 5. Share your story to help others in similar situations. Let them know they aren't alone and there is hope. The key message is that rejection and the word no should not be seen as the final answer or the end of your dreams. Instead, view a no as a detour or an obstacle in the path, signaling you to slow down, reassess, and find an alternate route to your destination. Success comes from refusing to accept no for an answer and facing rejection and roadblocks. To illustrate this message, the author shares stories of her perceived rejections and roadblocks in her journey to success. She emphasizes that perception shapes our reality, and we can choose to view life's difficulties as happening for us rather than to us. We can push past no and rejection to achieve our biggest dreams by shifting our perception. The key steps the author recommends are: 1. Name your dreams and goals. Write them down, no matter how big or small they are. 2. View no and rejection as temporary obstacles, not the end of the road. See them as detours, not dead ends. 3. Shift your perception. Choose to view difficulties as happening for you, not to you. See them as preparing and strengthening you for achieving your goals. 4. Refuse to accept no for an answer. Persist in the face of rejection and roadblocks. Find alternate routes to your destination. The message is hope, empowerment, and determination to achieve your dreams despite rejection and obstacles. Success comes to those who refuse to give up. The author discusses how fear and rejection often cause people to give up on their dreams. She shares a personal story of how she pursued her lifelong dream of becoming an author, despite facing rejection from publishers. She self-published her first book, becoming a bestseller and launching her career. The key points are: 1. Fear drives choices and decisions, so we must face our fears by talking about them. Keeping fears in the darkness gives them power. 2. There are common reasons why people give up on their dreams, including listening to voices of authority, parents, teachers, bosses, who tell them they can't do it. Negative self-talk and believing in your lies and fears. It isn't easy and takes a long time. Progress feels slow while others are succeeding. 3. No one gets to tell you how big your dreams can be. Don't listen to the naysayers. You get to decide if you will listen to them. 4. Goals and dreams are hard. It's normal to feel discouraged. Cry if you need to, then get back up and keep working. 5. The author didn't have a book deal because she had never finished the manuscript. She completed her self-published book, a bestseller, launching her career. The key was persistence in the face of rejection and discouragement. The main message is that we must not give up in the face of fear, rejection, difficulty, or voices telling us we can't achieve our dreams. With hard work and persistence, we can accomplish great things. Here's a summary of the key points. The author says that she used to think she was terrible at sex, but she has realized that was a lie. Many women feel this way due to negative experiences, lack of expertise, or judgment they have received. The author had a particularly terrible sexual experience on her wedding night, leading her to believe she was frigid. But she later learned she was not. She just needed to feel loved, comfortable, and not judged. Many women receive messages implying they should be sex objects for men's pleasure, not pursue their pleasure. But sex should be mutually enjoyable and empowering for both partners. The key to good sex is communication, comfort, and learning what you and your partner enjoy. Don't compare yourself to unrealistic media depictions of sex. Focus on intimacy with your partner. The author says her sex life improved significantly once she realized the lies she had believed, worked to improve intimacy and communication with her husband, and pursued mutual pleasure and empowerment. Women should not feel ashamed for wanting to enjoy sex. The overall message is that many women feel bad at sex due to unfair societal messages and experiences, but this is a myth. With the right partner, communication, and mutual respect, women should feel empowered to enjoy healthy, intimate sexual relationships. The author initially had a poor sex life with her husband due to a lack of experience and knowledge. After 5 years of marriage and 2 kids, they rarely had sex. Her husband told her he got tired of initiating sex just to be rejected, even though she would agree to have sex. She realized she was not enjoying or embracing sex and doing it out of obligation. She decided to work on improving their sex life. The first step was redefining what sex meant to her. She saw it as an opportunity to connect and have fun with her husband, not an obligation. She figured out what kept her from enjoying sex and spoke openly with her husband. Communication and being on the same page was key. She read a Bible verse, Hebrews 13 verse 4, that helped her feel okay with embracing passion and new experiences in the bedroom with her husband. She thought it could be positive if it were between them and consensual. She practiced self-love and positive self-talk to feel more comfortable and confident in bed. Her husband loved her body as it was. She committed to pursuing her pleasure and orgasm. She realized her orgasm was not just icing on the cake, but the cake itself. Finding ways to increase her happiness helped increase her enthusiasm and joy for sex. Through all these steps, she went from being bad at sex to having an active and fulfilling sex life with her husband. Communication, confidence, commitment to pleasure, and reframing her view of sex were vital to improving intimacy. Here's a summary. The author hates being pregnant and finds every part of it difficult. However, she's grateful to have 3 kids. The author was overwhelmed with worries and fears about her baby as a new mom. She felt unprepared and inadequate as a mother. Breastfeeding and lack of sleep were difficult. At one point, she even temporarily hated her husband due to the stress and exhaustion. Even after things improved, the author struggled to bond with her baby because she was so focused on appearing to be the perfect mom. She suffered from postpartum depression after her second child, often thinking about running away. She felt like a failure for not instantly becoming the ideal mom she saw portrayed online and in media. The author advises new moms not to worry about knowing everything or being the perfect Pinterest-worthy mom. Keeping a baby alive is pretty simple. The most important things are feeding the baby, cuddling it, loving it, changing it, and keeping it warm. New moms don't have to have it all figured out. The key message is that becoming a new mom is difficult and overwhelming. Comparing yourself to unrealistic societal ideals of motherhood only makes it harder. The basics of caring for a baby are simple, though. Learning to accept imperfections and focus on bonding with your baby is what matters. Here's a summary. The author struggles with feelings of inadequacy as a mother, especially when comparing herself to other mothers. She works a demanding job and often misses school events and activities. She tries to make up for it by volunteering and planning fundraisers, but her kids still notice her absences. Keeping up with all the scheduling and logistics of 3 kids' school lives is stressful and overwhelming for her. She feels like other mothers handle all of these responsibilities better. Ultimately, the author decides that she's over it. She's rejecting the idea that she has to keep up with an impossible standard of motherhood set by comparing herself to other moms. She will stop beating herself up over what she can't do and instead focus on what matters, loving her kids. The author acknowledges the challenges of the back-to-school season as a parent but says she handles parts of it well, like getting her kids to school on time and ensuring they do well. However, she admits she does not do everything perfectly, like volunteering in the classroom or chaperoning field trips. She argues that parents should focus on doing their best rather than worrying about perceptions and seeking perfection. The author says that as a working mom and entrepreneur, she is often traveling for work and unable to help her kids as much as she would like, which can be anxiety-provoking. However, she recognizes that being a perfect parent is a myth and that doing one's best is what matters. She says there is no right way to parent or be a family. Parents should focus on raising good people and giving themselves grace when they fall short. The author says parents should avoid comparing themselves and their families to others. They should accept good and bad days and take care of themselves to properly care for their children. She argues that constantly questioning one's parenting choices is unfair to both parents and children. The author shares that she had to embrace being a working mom fully. Questioning her choices was setting a bad example for her kids. Based on a question from her trainer, she also realized that she would never treat her kids the way she treated herself. She decided she would do her best as a parent and learn to trust herself. The key message is that parents should avoid seeking perfection and comparing themselves to others. They should focus on doing their best, give themselves grace, and take care of themselves so they can adequately care for their children. The author was surprised that many women dislike growing older because of the things they haven't yet accomplished, not because of physical aging. These women had life plans and goals they thought they would achieve by certain ages, and each birthday reminded them of what they had and still needed to succeed. The author argues this is an unhealthy mindset. It focuses on absence rather than presence or progress. She compares it to scolding a baby for not running immediately after taking her first steps. We would never treat a child that harshly for simply learning and progressing at her own pace. Yet we often treat ourselves this way with negative self-talk about what we should have done by now. This negative self-talk can be more damaging than abuse from others because we often don't even recognize we're doing it. But constantly berating ourselves for what we still need to achieve serves no purpose. Maybe we thought we'd be further in our careers or relationships by now, but God, or life, has perfect timing. Everything happens as it's meant to. We should focus on being present in the current moment, and appreciating our progress rather than judging ourselves for arbitrary life milestones we have yet to reach. Our lives are unfolding as intended. We are enough right now in this moment, just as we are. The core message is to be gentler with ourselves, avoid negative judgments about what we should have done by now, and trust that our lives are progressing as they're meant to. We are enough as we are right now. The author speaks at mothers of preschoolers, MOPS, groups and knows how difficult it is to raise young children. When asked to speak on a topic related to parenting, the author tries to work with the suggested theme but focuses on what she knows from experience. For example, the author suggests alternate titles joking about discussing the Taco Bell menu, books with supernatural love triangles, or finally, learning a popular dance. The critical point is that the author aims to speak from experience about the challenges of parenting young children, rather than promoting an unrealistic view of effortless parenting. The main message is that parenting preschool-aged children are hard work and often messy, contrary to the perception that other parents have idyllic lives with well-behaved children. The author wants to validate the experience of parents in the trenches. Here's a summary. The author struggles to find time to reflect and write due to the chaos of her daily life as a mother and businesswoman. However, she realizes that embracing the chaos is what resonates most with her audience. She describes 3 common unhealthy ways of dealing with the disorder. 1. Ignoring it. This is stressful, and the mess will catch up to you in negative ways. 2. Battling it. This implies you can control everything and will inevitably feel like a failure. It leads to anger and feeling out of control. 3. Drowning in it. This is overwhelming and suffocating. It prevents you from living your life. The author argues for embracing the chaos instead. This means accepting that you can't control everything, finding humor and grace in difficult moments, and maintaining relationships with God and others. People who do this best are often those with the most chaotic lives, like military spouses or special needs parents. Jesus embraced chaos and brought messy, broken people into his ministry. The Bible reminds us that there are seasons to life and times for every purpose. Feeling overwhelmed is not new, and we each deal with stress in our way. We can embrace chaos by giving ourselves grace, breathing, finding humor, and connecting with God and others. The key message is that we should accept the chaos in our lives rather than fight against it, and we can find meaning even in difficult moments. Embracing chaos may even be the path to finding peace. The author attended a conference where a speaker asked the audience who they craved love from more as a child, their mother or father. The author said her father. The speaker then asked who the audience members had to be to receive their parents' love. The author first said a successful, but realized she must also be small to get her father's love. The author's father was not verbally affectionate and praised her mainly for her achievements and hard work. He did not know how to interact with or show affection to young children. Most of the time, he wanted silence from the author and her siblings. Her father called her little girl, not affectionately but in a way that emphasized that she should be seen and not heard. The author realized she had learned from an early age to make herself small, invisible, and non-demanding to get any attention or affection from her father. This was an eye-opening insight for her. The key takeaway is that the author had subconsciously developed the belief that she had to minimize herself to be loved by her father during her formative years. This contributed to her struggle with not feeling good enough as an adult. This insight helped her better understand herself and move past that harmful belief. The summary highlights how gaining insight into the origins of self-limiting beliefs formed in childhood can be an essential first step toward overcoming them. Recognizing the source of her faith that she had to make herself small to be loved allowed the author to start questioning and challenging that belief. Here's a summary. The author grew up being called little girl by her father in a dismissive way. This affected her self-confidence and caused her to make herself seem small to please others. She realized this was hindering her and her company's growth and success. At a conference, she observed many successful women downplaying their accomplishments by calling them just a hobby or a side gig. She realized many women hide parts of themselves to seem less threatening or off-putting to others. The author believes God created women to fulfill their dreams and use their gifts. She refuses to teach her daughter that she has to choose between a family and a career. She wants to set an example of a woman who embraces all of herself. She urges other women to stop feeling guilty about who they are, to acknowledge their gifts and dreams, and to stop making themselves small for others' comfort. God created them for a purpose. They should pursue it boldly rather than trying to please everyone. The key things that helped the author were: 1. Willingness to offend, not caring if she makes some uncomfortable by being fully herself. 2. Self-reflection, looking inward to understand her motivations and habits. 3. Setting boundaries, not letting others' opinions determine her self-worth or path in life. 4. Faith in God's plan, believing God has called her to pursue her dreams and use her gifts for a reason. 5. Choosing to be an example, deciding to set an empowering example for her daughter and other women. The main message is that women should embrace who God created them to be rather than shrinking themselves to suit others' expectations. They must acknowledge their gifts and pursue their dreams with courage and faith in God's calling. Here's a summary. 1. The author used to believe she would marry Matt Damon and obsessed over it for years. This fantasy gave her hope and direction even though it was unrealistic. 2. The author also obsessively wanted an expensive Louis Vuitton purse for years to symbolize success. She worked hard and saved up to eventually buy it, showing persistence in achieving her goals. 3. The author says her ability to imagine her dreams in great detail has been vital to achieving them. Focusing on a specific vision gave her motivation and direction. 4. To stay motivated, the author recommends surrounding yourself with inspiring people. Listening to motivational podcasts. Figuring out what motivates you and repeating it. Most notably, envisioning your dream in intricate detail. Make it as accurate as possible in your mind. 5. Having an unrealistic fantasy, like marrying Matt Damon, can still provide hope and point you in a direction to walk toward. You can clarify your goals along the way. 6. To navigate difficult times, keep your eyes on the horizon. Focus on your vision and goals. Break big goals into smaller, tangible milestones. Write your goals down and imagine achieving them. 7. The key is to make your goals feel natural through visualization and belief in yourself. Have certainty you can achieve them, even if others doubt you. That covers the key points and main lessons from the story. Let me know if you want me to clarify or expand on any summary part. After publishing her first book, the author initially enjoyed reading positive reviews from readers on Goodreads. However, she then encountered her first bad review, which was devastating and caused her to spiral into self-doubt. She went through stages of critique grief, including denial, believing the criticism, bargaining, and eventual acceptance that she might be a terrible writer. However, she remembered her therapist's advice: someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. This helped her realize that she should not let other people's opinions, especially negative ones, determine her self-worth or assessment of her writing. Creating something from the heart means doing it because you feel compelled to, not to please others. While positive feedback is appreciated, you cannot let negative opinions derail you. You have to believe in yourself and your work. The key takeaway is that you should not let self-doubt hold you back from creating or following your passions. Do not give others power over how you view yourself and your abilities. Focus on why you started in the first place. The author's details about her experiences encountering criticism and self-doubt help illustrate her key points. The critique grief concept and the stages she went through are relatable for anyone who has put themselves or their work into the world. However, the advice to not let others' opinions determine your self-worth helps overcome self-doubt and insecurity in any area of life. Overall, this passage encourages readers to believe in themselves and their work, not give power to self-doubt or negative opinions, and remember why they started creating in the first place. The author shares her experiences to show how to apply these concepts in practice. The author's brother, Ryan, was her best friend and protector growing up. He was kind, talented, and funny. When the author was around 12, Ryan developed a mental illness. Before the author turned 15, Ryan died due to his mental illness. This was an incredibly traumatic event for the author and her family. She didn't think she would ever get past the grief and pain. The author wants others who have experienced trauma and loss to know they are not alone. Healing is possible, even from devastating events. Some key things that helped the author heal. 1. Talking about it. She shared her story with others who had been through similar losses. She was finding solidarity and comfort in shared experiences. 2. Honoring her brother's memory. She looked through old photos and shared happy stories of him with her loved ones. 3. Forgiving herself. She had to forgive herself for being unable to save him or see the depth of his pain. She was just a child, and it was not her fault. 4. Choosing joy. Though the pain remained, she tried to embrace joy and happiness when it came. She lived her life in a way that would make her brother proud. 5. Time. Though it did not erase the pain, the passing of time allowed her to cope with it better. The pain became less raw, though she still missed him deeply. The author wants others to know that healing from trauma and devastating loss is a journey. It's a winding path, not a straight line. But embracing life again, forgiving yourself, sharing your story, and honoring lost loved ones can help make the journey possible. The pain may remain, but it will become easier to carry. You will heal. The author hesitates to share the whole, complex story of what her family has gone through. She wants to keep it private to avoid the pain but knows that hiding the truth gives power to fear and negativity. She hopes that by being honest about their experience, they can empower and inform other families considering adoption. After building a career on being open, she hesitates to share this story. But she wants to be transparent. When pregnant with their son, they decided to adopt a girl someday. As Christians, they felt called to care for orphans and the oppressed. They began the adoption process from Africa. They were matched with a little girl and started preparing to travel to her country. The author wants to be transparent to help others, even though it's difficult and painful for her. The following section will likely describe their challenges in the adoption process and with the child they adopted. The author and her husband decided to adopt internationally and chose Ethiopia. After a long process, Ethiopia closed adoption to the U.S., leaving them unsure what to do next. They decided to adopt from foster care in LA. They started with foster care, intending to adopt. They took in a medically frail baby girl and her 2-year-old sister. After 3 months, the girls were moved to another placement. This was traumatic for the author. 34 days later, they got a call about newborn twins. Despite being unprepared for twins, they said yes. After 4 years of waiting, they were overjoyed to bring the babies home. 4 days later, the police showed up at their door at night. Someone had anonymously reported them for child abuse from their previous foster care placement. This led to an intense investigation by Child Services, including questioning their sons. The author felt guilty for exposing her family to the foster care system. In the midst of this, they found out the twins were not available for adoption. Their biological father wanted them, and they were always meant to be in foster care temporarily. The experience of the investigation and uncertainty left the author barely eating or sleeping. The questions about whether they had abused the children were traumatic. It was a painful and confusing time, especially as they cared for newborn twins. The author acknowledges that investigations are necessary for the foster system but also notes that the system considers you guilty until deemed inconclusive rather than innocent until proven guilty. The experience revealed how naive she had been about the potential difficulties of the foster system. The justification for withholding information about the twins' biological family was that the social worker wanted to keep options open for the twins' adoption if needed. While the reasoning was unethical, the social worker likely had an overwhelming caseload and was desperately trying to find homes for vulnerable children. The author and her husband decided to accept the twins into their foster care, but after a few weeks, they realized they couldn't go through with the adoption. They felt cheated and tricked by the lack of honesty in the process. The situation was traumatic, and they questioned their faith and whether to continue trying to adopt. However, the author's husband encouraged her to keep trying to adopt through independent adoption. The process was complex, as they had to compete with many other families and went through several unsuccessful matches with birth mothers. The author wavered between hopefulness and sadness. She clung to her faith, even when it was weak. Looking back, the author recognized the good that had come from their long journey. They had raised awareness about adoption needs, loved 4 little girls even for a short time, and built a stronger marriage. Despite the pain, their faith and perseverance led them to find strength. While the path was uncertain, the author chose to keep walking in faith. The key ideas are: 1. The social worker withheld information about the twins' biological family to keep more options open for them. This was unethical but necessary, given the circumstances. 2. The experience of accepting and then losing the twins was traumatic for the author and her husband. They felt betrayed by the lack of honesty in the process. 3. The independent adoption process was difficult and emotionally painful, filled with failures and uncertainties. But with her husband's support, the author persevered in faith. 4. Although the journey was challenging, the author found meaning and purpose in raising awareness, loving needy children, and strengthening her marriage. Faith gave her strength to continue despite the pain. 5. The path to adoption was uncertain, but the author chose to walk in faith one step at a time. The author's parents went through a traumatic divorce when she was a teenager. One day, her father tried to teach her how to drive a stick shift, but he lost his temper and yelled at her the whole time. Afterward, she ate an entire box of Oreos to cope with her feelings. This experience marked the start of her issues with emotional eating and her weight defining her self-worth. Later, the author got mono and lost a lot of weight. She became obsessed with staying thin, but she was always hungry and gained the weight back and then some. When the author moved to LA at 17, she was unaware of not fitting in at her size. She tried diet pills and lived off Slim Fast to lose weight. She lost weight, but she always felt terrible and jittery. She expected her life to get better when she was thinner magically, but she mostly got unwanted male attention and felt anxious. One day, the author came home early from work and caught her roommate stealing money from her wallet. The betrayal made her realize that being thin would not fix her life or make her happy. She decided to stop taking diet pills and focus on surrounding herself with good people. Instead of constantly trying to change to meet unrealistic societal beauty standards, she began to accept herself as she was. The key takeaway is that true happiness and self-worth come from within, not from chasing unrealistic beauty standards or thinking that being thinner will fix your problems or make life perfect. The author learned this through difficult life experiences at a young age. The author initially struggled with yo-yo dieting and unhealthy relationships with food and her body. As a teenager, she learned to binge eat as a coping mechanism for stress and emotion. This behavior continued into adulthood and through her pregnancies, leaving her unable to lose excess weight. The author does not believe loving yourself means accepting unhealthy habits or weight. She believes humans are intended to care for their physical health through nutrition, hydration, and exercise. Though trauma or hardship may lead someone to neglect self-care for a time, these things do not sentence someone to a lifetime of poor health or half-living. People can choose to overcome their circumstances and make positive changes. The author emphasizes that health and weight loss do not determine someone's worth or value. However, caring for your body is an act of self-love and respect. Excuses and justifications for unhealthy lifestyles will only keep you from living fully. The mechanics of weight loss are simple: consume fewer calories than you burn, but developing healthy habits and a growth mindset takes work. The author has spent years developing healthy coping strategies, learning about nutrition, and finding physical activities she enjoys. This ongoing work has been vital in overcoming negative self-talk and lifelong unhealthy patterns. Reciting positive mantras and rebuilding her self-perception have given her the strength and motivation to become healthy and help others do the same. Overall, the author wants readers to know that they are worthy and deserving of health, and that though the journey is challenging, lasting change is possible through conscious choice and effort. The author started drinking alcohol occasionally as a teenager but didn't regularly drink until she had children, and the responsibilities and stresses of parenting became overwhelming. At first, she would have a glass or two of wine each evening to relax and unwind. Over time, this escalated to drinking most evenings and in larger quantities, to the point where she realized she had come to believe she needed alcohol to cope and function. Recognizing this was unhealthy, the author stopped drinking for a month to prove she didn't need it. She resumed occasional, moderate drinking but avoided using alcohol as a coping mechanism. This changed when the author and her husband became foster parents to 5 children. The situation's chaos, stress, and trauma caused her drinking to escalate again. She and her husband relied on vodka and Xanax to endure the long, difficult days. The author now feels sad looking back at that time, seeing her younger self rely on substances to cope and wishing she had been more vital for herself and her children. She recognizes that many women struggle with how much they drink today, even if it's not a real problem. But they worry it's becoming unhealthy and taking a toll on their lives. The author's story warns about the slippery slope of using alcohol to cope with stress and trauma, and how easily social or moderate drinking can evolve into reliance on alcohol addiction. The message seems to be that it's better to develop alternative coping strategies before drinking to unwind, and become drinking to get through the day. That covers the key elements and main takeaways from the author's story regarding her experiences with drinking and learning healthier ways to cope with the difficulties of parenting and life stresses. Please let me know if you want me to clarify or expand on any summary part. The author grew up in a small, isolated, conservative Pentecostal community in rural California. She needed more exposure to diversity or different ways of thinking and living. Her community implicitly taught her that there was only one right way to be like them. As a teen, a trip to Disneyland exposed her to diversity for the first time. She saw people of all ethnicities, sexual orientations, and styles, unlike anything in her community. It was eye-opening but also shocking. Looking back, the author realizes how closed-off and sheltered her upbringing was. Her beliefs and worldview have changed dramatically as an adult. She now rejects the idea that there is only one right way to be. Exposure to diversity and different ways of living has shaped her current open and inclusive perspective. The key message is that believing there is only one right way to live is a lie. Diversity of thought and culture should be embraced rather than judged. An open and curious perspective helps overcome close-mindedness. Sheltered upbringings can limit exposure to variety, so seeking new experiences is essential for growth. The author uses her story to illustrate how perspectives can shift with exposure and life experience. Her message encourages openness, inclusion, continual learning, and reevaluating beliefs. Overall, it's a thoughtful reflection on overcoming close-mindedness and embracing diversity. The author used to draw lines between people and separate them based on differences like race, religion, social class, etc. But as she grew up, she realized that people are more alike than different regardless of appearance or background. The author built an online community for women from all over the world. She found that women everywhere share many of the same concerns and experiences regardless of their differences. As a Christian, the author believes God gave her this platform to serve and love people from all backgrounds. She can't fully love them if she demands they be like her. The author attends a hip-hop dance class where she struggles as a beginner surrounded by more experienced dancers. But she continues to go because she wants to improve, grow, and leave her comfort zone. She approaches building community similarly. She's willing to look foolish to learn from more experienced people. The author has a close friend who is gay, African American, and Mexican American. Their friendship has taught the author much and helped change her prior biases and prejudices. It has also given her a lot of joy and support. She would have missed out on this friendship if she had stayed within her bubble. Once, when the author and her husband were hosting friends with a son with disabilities, she worried about how to prepare her kids. But she realized addressing his disabilities in advance would draw a line between them. So she said nothing, and her kids saw their new friend as just another playmate. They were able to form a friendship unhindered by perceived differences. The author argues that there are many ways to be a woman, mother, boss, or any other role. Beauty and truth exist in diversity, not uniformity. At the end of her dance class, people from all walks of life come together to support each other, even though they express themselves differently. If we are open to learning from others different from us, we can build deep relationships that transcend surface differences. We don't need to change our beliefs, we adjust our posture to be more open, inclusive, and willing to listen. The author was not athletic as a child and teenager. She tried a few sports but was never great at them. She accepted that athletics was not her gift or passion. When her husband trained for and ran a half marathon, the author felt jealous that she couldn't do it while pregnant. The following year, she decided to prepare for and run the half marathon with him to prove she could do it. The author discovered she is an excellent long-distance runner. She is mentally tough and determined to push through challenging runs, even when her husband wants to quit. She has endured long labor and built businesses through hard work and perseverance. This serves her well in long-distance running. The author ran her first half marathon at Disney World. Although nervous at first, she found the race magical and uplifting. She was inspired by the diversity of other runners overcoming challenges to train for and finish the race. Hearing "A dream is a wish your heart makes" at the start of the race brought her to tears, as completing the half marathon was fulfilling a wish her heart had made. The author found her first full marathon extremely difficult but persevered. She struggled and searched for inspiring music at mile 11 of her first half marathon. When "I Need a Hero" it came on, she realized she didn't need to find a hero. She was her hero at that moment for pushing herself to do something she never imagined possible. The critical message is that we don't need to wait for someone else to inspire or motivate us. We can be our heroes by setting challenging goals and persevering to achieve them through hard work and determination. We are capable of more than we realize. The author achieved many things through her hard work and perseverance, not because of the help of others. She ran an entire marathon fueled by her belief in God and her strength. She believes every person has the power to change their own life through hard work and determination. She encourages the reader to stop waiting for someone else to fix their problems and work to achieve their goals. The author thanks her community of supportive women, her agent, her team, her nanny, her family, and her parents for helping and inspiring her.